read a lot growing up, and it was like throwing gasoline on this side of my brain. And I thought one of these days I wanted to write, but I also had this passion to be a veterinarian, and that seemed to be a career track I could actually follow. I thought you had to be have some type of literary pedigree to be able to become a published author. It seemed like a pipe dream. This seemed more realistic, so I became a veterinarian. And I'm going to gloss over how a veterinarian became an author. If you want to know more details about that during the Q&A, because I don't know why you're here. I'm always surprised that anybody shows up at any of my signings. So I'm assuming you might have questions for me, maybe not, I don't know. I know whenever I attend a book signing, I usually have a question or two for the author. If it doesn't get answered during the course of that book signing, I never read them again. I just don't want that to happen here. So we'll hopefully have time for Q&A. So I'm going to just jump right in and talk about the Devil Colony itself. Then we can open up for Q&A. I'm not going to be overly demonstrative or explanatory about this book, because if I tell you too much, you might not go, well, now I know the whole story, I don't want to buy the book. Or if I don't tell you enough, it's like, oh, that doesn't sound interesting enough, so I don't want to buy the book. So I have to try to thread that needle, and try to get you intrigued, but not give you too much information. Because ultimately, you know why I'm here, right? Because, the book. To be honest with you, I don't really care if you read the book. Just buy it. So I'm always challenged exactly how to accomplish that threading the needle. How do I talk about this book and without giving too much away? So I thought I've done this the last couple signings for my last couple books, how to frame my discussion about a novel, because I'm going to frame it around one question. It's a question that if I don't answer it now, you're going to ask it during the Q&A. I thought I might as well get it off and get it done with, because it's the one question all authors hate to hear. It's the one question that if you ever want to make an author cringe, walk up to them and ask them this question. Does anybody know what that question is?
Where do you get your
Thank you. That's the first or second response. Where do you get your idea? I was at a book signing last night. First time, I've been doing this now for, I think, 3 or 4 years. In every audience, I said, does anybody know the one question all authors hate to hear? It's always been the first or second response. I was at a book signing yesterday. Nobody guessed it. I was like, question 17. Do you wear boxers or briefs? No, that is not the question. Come on, people. What question do we hate to hear? So yes, where do we get our ideas from? Why we hate that is that we don't know. And we really don't want to look too closely at that question, because we're afraid that if we look too closely at the process, it will evaporate and disappear, and whatever talent we have will be gone. And I have very little talent, so I can't spare to lose any of it, as Publishers Weekly will attest. So I thought I'd frame this question as, and again, I always thought for me it was just me not having an answer to where you get your ideas from. It seems to be ubiquitous amongst most authors, and I'll give you this one example. I was at a book signing just before Subtraining came out, my first book. I thought, well, I better learn how to do book signings and see how other authors do book signings. I'd attended a few, but I really wasn't paying attention to what they were doing, but I wanted to sort of study what this author was doing. So there's a best-selling mystery author. I'm sure, I don't want to name that unknown author. It's a mystery author, and if you know the alphabet, you might guess who he or she is. So I was attending their book signing, and that question came up during the Q&A. Sue, unknown author, where do you get your ideas from? And she gave a great response. It was very eloquent, very polished. It comes from inside. It's an expression of myself onto paper, and just wow, that's great. I don't do any of that. I must really suck. And so afterwards, I wind through the line. She's very popular. It's a long line. Finally get to the front, and I'm getting my book signed, and I say, that was just a great response you gave about where you got your ideas from. I'm a new author. I've got a book coming out. I'm going on the road a little bit. She goes, you're an author? I says, yeah. She goes, I made it up. I have no idea where I get my ideas from, but you better have an answer. So I'm going to try to frame my discussion about this by trying, as you will see, very poorly in my attempt to answer where do I get my ideas from, specifically in regards to this book. As an author, and if you've ever read any of my books, I have a tendency to blend a lot of weird stuff together. I'm always looking for a bit of history that ends in a question mark, a bit of historical mystery. I'm oftentimes then looking for a bit of science that ends in a what if. What if this happened, what if that happened. often looking for strange places to set stories, or maybe the mythology or the history of that place. It might be a story can be built. I've always got my antennas up. I watch the History Channel and Discovery Channel. I subscribe to a bunch. I mean, literally my mailbox usually stuffed full of magazines. Discovery, Smithsonian, Fortean Times, Atlantis something or other. But lots of it. So whenever I find an article or I'm watching a television show and something comes up that's interesting, maybe Brad Meltzer's Decoded talks about something, I jot it down, it ends up in the box. And I limit it basically to just one file box. It's a cardboard box. It's a little messy, it's disorganized. Somewhere at the bottom there's probably mice running around there, but I like that chaos. I'm not a very organized author. I like that, just the pure chaoticness of that, because every now and again I have to keep emptying that box and clearing out stuff I don't want to keep. Otherwise, one box would become 3 boxes, would become 7 boxes, and I would eventually become one of those people on hoarding the television show.